Part 54. Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg Nian Bai. Chapter 531. Su Ming will be very busy these 2 days. That night, Tony drove a helicopter and took him and Guozijian around the zoo. Su Ming thought Guozijian was just looking at the topography. It would only take an hour at most to take a plane. Guozijian had planned to do so. What could he see in such a dark day? He could just get familiar with the environment. The bad things happened on the helicopter. Helicopters are like cars. They are both means of transportation, but one flies in the sky and the other runs on the ground. Cars have high beams, low beams, fog lights, and a lot of other lighting equipment. Of course, helicopters have more. Not only that, but the brightness is far greater than that of car headlights. When turned on at night, it can illuminate a large area in front as bright as day. On the plane, Guozijian habitually asked Tony something in English. In the past, Tony would definitely ask Su Ming what he meant first, but he drank a little too much that day and responded in English without asking Su Ming. Later, Su Ming found out that Guozijian was asking Tony if he could control the helicopter to stop in mid-air and use the searchlight on the plane to illuminate him. He wanted to conduct a field investigation. Tony said that as long as it was not at a 90-degree angle, he could do it. All night long, Guozijian was on the plane. Whenever he saw a scene or location that he thought might be suitable for a movie, he would get off the plane and observe it in person, letting Tony use the helicopter as a flashlight. It was better on flat ground, as the helicopter could land. If there was no landing space around, Su Ming's nightmare would come. The helicopter was tilted and almost made him vomit. Overnight, Guozijian carefully searched the back mountain, the zoo, and the reservoir area, and did not return home until dawn. The next morning, before Su Ming had slept for 3 hours, Guozijian called and said that he had selected 23 scenes last night, some of which were suitable for night scenes. He wanted to go around again during the day to find scenes suitable for daytime shooting, and ask Su Ming to join him. Su Ming refused without hesitation, and found an excuse that he was busy with official business, so that Tony could go with him, and he hid in the waterside pavilion to sleep. He slept until 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Just as he opened his eyes and got out of bed to find something to eat, the phone rang again. It was Guozijian again. I don't understand why this guy has such strong energy. He couldn't not go this time, because he had to determine the range of actors. Su Ming was the producer of the investment party. The matter of actors was decided by the director, but it would definitely not work without the nod of the investors. Maybe the investors would take the opportunity to insert a few actors. In fact, many of the crudely made microfilms in China now, and even a few blockbusters with huge investments, to put it bluntly, are just rich people who spend money to support the role and make beautiful women laugh. The investment of millions or tens of millions in the eyes of ordinary people is just a play for the real rich. It seems that Guozijian knows everything about the mainland circle, perhaps because the Hong Kong film circle is also like this. In short, if Su Ming is not there, he will never take the initiative in actors. Fortunately, Su Ming finally had a good sleep and recovered his spirit. These 2 days, he was almost in the process of revising the script and selecting actors. He was not tired physically, but his heart was too tired. Selecting actors and revising scripts are both brain work, which requires very precise judgment and some inexplicable intuition. It just so happens that selecting actors is very important. It is not like an exam. After the exam, there is a correct answer, and you can know whether your original choice is right or wrong. There is only one chance to select actors, and no one will ever tell you whether this choice is correct or whether there will be better choices, so you must be cautious before making a decision. There is another important reason: money. Guozijian knows that Su Ming has such a small investment, and every penny must be spent worthwhile. At least Su Ming, the boss, thinks it is worthwhile. Sometimes when you work for someone, you not only have to do the things the boss tells you to do, but more importantly, you must make the boss feel that you are doing it according to his intentions, otherwise it will be thankless. Guo Zijian is quiet and doesn't talk much, but he is almost 40 years old. He has been in the circle for many years and knows it in his heart. Guo Zijian proposed several candidates for the male lead. One is a popular young actor in Hong Kong in the past 2 years. He has starred in The Gigolo 1 and The Gigolo 2 and won awards. He is handsome and has a kind of lovable taste. His salary will not exceed 2 million, and this price can be negotiated. 2 million. Su Ming thought about it and rejected the proposal. This price is not expensive, but it is not worth it compared to the popularity of this young actor in the mainland. Su Ming has seen the movie The Gigolo. This young actor did not leave a deep impression on people. He is handsome, but he is not the type that can become popular overnight. It feels that he lacks a bit of soul. The appeal of a star directly affects the box office. It is not worth spending 2 million to find a young actor from Hong Kong who has almost no fans in the mainland. It is better to spend more money and directly invite a star who is at the end of the first line or the beginning of the second line. The second is the Thief Boy group that the female employee of the zoo once mentioned. Of course, only one of them can be chosen. Although they are a little young, this movie is not a love movie. Su Ming thought about it for a long time and rejected it. From the perspective of personal preference, Su Ming, a man in his 20s, really has no feelings for Thief Boy, whose fans are mainly women. Of course, Su Ming wants to make a movie, not watch it at home, so the casting cannot be based on his own preferences, but must fully consider the box office and the public. If we can invite one of the members of this group, we can bring in good box office revenue just by relying on the fan economy. But there are two problems. First, this is a group that has just become popular. At present, it seems that their development trend is that the whole group will advance and retreat together. It may be difficult to invite one of them alone, and this group has become popular now, so the price will not be cheap. Second, the advantage of fan economy is that no matter whether the movie is good or not, there will be a group of stable box office contributors, but it will also exclude another group of people who don't like them. This group has many fans in China, and there are also many people who hate them. The zoo is divided into two factions. Those who like them love them to death and clamor to give birth to monkeys for them, without considering whether it is illegal to have a relationship with a minor. Those who don't like them sneer at them and call them feces boys. They wish that the 3 children would fall into the feces pit and drown while walking, which is quite vicious. Third, the age of this group is a little young after all. Su Ming's filming this time is a test. If it works, it can be regarded as a sustainable industry in the future. He doesn't want to limit the way at the beginning. Dang Dang is okay as a guest star, but forget about the leading role. The third candidate is the popular young actor Wu Yufan in China. This actor is the most suitable candidate in my mind, Guo Zijian said. Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg Nian Bai. Chapter 532. Su Ming was speechless, thinking that I also know this is a good candidate, but where does he get so much money? Speaking of Wu Yufan, Su Ming thought of one person, Nangong Huang. In terms of appearance, Su Ming dares to say that Nangong Huang is no worse than Wu Yufan, except that he lacks some celebrity qualities. But Nangong Huang has a little more ruffianism than Wu Yufan, which makes him more suitable for the role. The celebrities we usually see have been processed by makeup artists and stylists. Coupled with lighting, photography, and other factors, the stars will look radiant. If you look back at Jay Zhou, who was left on a construction site for a week to move bricks, he is no different from Peng Meilang. Since Nangong Huang has a good foundation in appearance, why not let him try it? Even if he is not as good as Wu Yufan, he is still a better candidate than the original Xiang Zhang Xiaosheng. None of them are famous. At least Nangong Huang does not need a salary of 2 million. Su Ming left the final decision to director Guo Zijian. After just a few days of getting along, Su Ming trusted Guo Zijian's professionalism. Guo Zijian was a little surprised. He raised his head and glanced at Su Ming. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he quickly drew something on the paper with a pen. Su Ming glanced at it and found that Guo Zijian really had some skills. He had met Nangong Huang 3 or 4 times, and in a short period of time, he was able to draw a sketch of Nangong Huang based on his memory. The details of the corners of the eyes and eyebrows were slightly, there are some differences, but they are very similar. People who are familiar with Nangong Huang can tell who this is at a glance. After finishing the painting, Guo Zijian tilted his head slightly and stared at Nangong Huang in the sketch. Su Ming quickly explained, "Director Guo, this person is a relative of mine, but I definitely did not recommend him because of this relationship. We make movies to make money. I just suddenly thought that he has a similar temperament to the leading actor, so I decided to. When it comes to this, you can judge from a professional perspective. I believe in your vision." Guo Zijian still didn't speak, and looked away from the drawing paper. He picked up the drawing paper with both hands and made some gestures in front of him. When he found that Su Ming was still waiting for him to speak, he laughed to himself, "Sorry, I was a little lost." "Su Sheng, you misunderstood, that's not what I meant, I was looking to see if he was consistent." "That's easy, I'll call someone here for you," Su Ming said while dialing Nangong Wang's number. "Hey brother-in-law, what are you doing?" "I'm waiting for dinner at Tingfeng Pavilion. There are still 10 minutes. Stop eating. Come to the hotel within 15 minutes. I'll take care of you," Su Ming said. "Ah, brother-in-law, can't you finish eating?" Nangong Huang said depressedly. "Whatever you want, less than 15 minutes, you'll be responsible for the consequences." Su Ming chuckled and hung up the phone directly. While waiting for Nangong Huang to arrive, Su Ming raised some concerns. "My relative has never studied acting." "That's not a problem. The main characters of this drama are animals. The so-called male and female protagonists only play a role of threading the needle and do not require too sophisticated acting skills. Ordinary performances can be temporarily directed. Many characters in Xiangzhang movies are." "It's my first time making a movie," Guo Zijian said. In less than 15 minutes, there was a knock on the door, and Nangong Huang ran in panting from the outside, carrying a large lunchbox in his hand. "Brother-in-law, what's the matter? Hoo, I didn't have time to eat the dumplings made by Hong Fi Fei, and I guess you didn't eat either. I brought you pork and cabbage stuffing." Nangong Huang put the lunchbox on the table. Said breathlessly. Just as Su Ming was about to speak, Guo Zijian suddenly stood up and slapped Nangong Huang on the head, making Nangong Huang stagger. You, what are you doing?" Nangong Huang's eyes suddenly stood up and he glared at Guo Zijian unruly. If he hadn't known that Su Ming had hired him to make a movie, he would have almost punched him. "Okay, it's you." After saying that, Guo Zijian clasped his hands and smiled apologetically at Nangong Huang. "Sorry, work requires it. If you are unhappy, just hit me." Now Nangong Huang was dumbfounded. He looked at Guo Zijian with his mouth wide open, then looked at Su Ming, and asked inexplicably, "Brother-in-law, is this guy's brain broken?" "Can he?" Su Ming asked. Guo Zijian gave Su Ming a thumbs up, "Absolutely. Su Sheng, you are a very discerning person, almost more accurate than a talent scout. Maybe you have discovered a future star." "Hey, what are you talking about? Brother-in-law, didn't you say you had something good to take care of me? I ran over here with good intentions to bring you dumplings to eat, and I was slapped for no reason, and you still laughed." Nangong Huang was even more confused. Su Ming opened the lunchbox unhurriedly, picked up a dumpling with 2 fingers and swallowed it in his mouth. "It's delicious. It's really delicious. A chef is a chef. Any dumpling he makes will be different. Director Guo, give it a try. I guarantee you have never had such delicious dumplings in Xiangjiang. Su Ming pushed the lunchbox in front of Guo Zijian, took out a piece of paper, and wiped the hand that had taken the dumpling slowly before standing up and patting Nangong Huang on the shoulder. Congratulations, my leading actor. What kind of hero and heroine? Nangong Huang didn't react at first, but before he finished his sentence, he understood what Su Ming meant. He took a deep breath, his mouth suddenly became round, and he stared at Su Ming as he said every word in disbelief. Brother-in-law, you mean, let me be the leading actor? It seems that my Chinese teacher can finally die in peace. Su Ming and Guo Zijian smiled at each other and nodded to Nangong Huang. Nangong Huang jumped up and yelled, then suddenly hugged Su Ming and kissed him on the cheek. Brother-in-law, I love you so much. Oh my God, Su Ming almost couldn't help but punch him, and quickly pulled out a piece of tissue to wipe his face. Hee. Guo Zijian subconsciously took 2 steps back, keeping a safe distance from the ecstatic Nangong Huang, and quickly reached out and took another dumpling and stuffed it into his mouth. Nangong Huang turned around twice, waving his fists heavily, slightly venting the excitement in his chest. Ha ha ha, I'm going to be a star. Hey, why are you two so far away from me? Don't worry, I won't kiss you again. I'm about to become a big star, so I don't want to have any scandals. The male lead was secretly exploited by the investors and directors in order to get promoted. Such rumors are not good for my future development. Su Ming. Guo Zijian. After confirming the male lead, the other candidates are relatively simple. The so-called female lead doesn't have many roles in the whole play, and is mainly used for supporting roles. Su Ming doesn't want to secretly exploit anyone, so he gave this task to Guo Zijian to decide. Su Ming also plans to keep an assistant director and a more important supporting role. Xiao Xiao has been talking about making a movie. If I really make a movie without him, it would be a bit unkind. There are actually no secrets in this circle. Xiao Xiao and I had a good relationship in the past, and Xiao Xiao also helped me a little. If it is spread that I forget my old friends when I become rich, it will be bad for making connections in the future. Although in this circle, interests are the top priority, people are rational and emotional after all, and most people don't like cold friends. Just as he was about to call Xiao Xiao, he suddenly received a strange call. The voice was a very anxious female voice with a tearful tone. Su Ming, I'm Shen Ying, Nangong's colleague, please come quickly, Nangong was beaten. Su Ming exploded all of a sudden. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg Nian Bai. Chapter 533. Su Ming's heart beat wildly, and a burst of fire surged up. Nangong Yan was beaten? I have seen strong winds and waves. I even went through the battlefield in Iraq. Thousands and tens of thousands of terrorists rained bullets and bullets, but nothing happened. Finally, when I returned to my own territory, my girlfriend was beaten in Yangchuan City. Can this be tolerated? I can endure it, but even the Russian airborne troops cannot. Su Ming knew very well what kind of character Nangong Yan was. A girl who was arrogant and arrogant at heart was beaten. How could she endure this grievance? Brother-in-law, what happened? Nangong Huang was startled next to him. He saw that Su Ming only said one sentence when he answered the phone. The hair on his head suddenly shook violently without wind, just like a hedgehog. It's like exploding thorns, that's what the ancients meant when they said they were furious, it's a sign of a person being extremely angry. Nangong Huang rarely saw Su Ming get angry. Su Ming usually smiled with everyone. Most people who knew him had never seen him angry. The more peaceful a person he was, the more angry he became. Scary. Guo Zijian also stood aside, not knowing what was going on, but he could clearly feel that the young boss was on the verge of going berserk. Su Ming ignored the two of them and asked on the phone, "Where are you? Is Nangong injured? Did you call the police?" The voice on the other end of the phone was very noisy. Someone was shouting something sharply. Shen Ying said, "I called the police at the Anran Hotel on Heping Road before I called the police. I called you immediately, Nangong." Before he finished speaking, a female voice sounded on the other end of the phone, "Bitch, who are you calling?" followed by a snap. The phone seemed to hit something hard, and then there was a busy tone. Either the phone was out of battery, or it was snatched away and dropped. Su Ming said with a sullen face, "Director Guo, I'm in a hurry. I need to leave first. Nangong Huang, stay here." Without waiting for them to reply, he walked out of the room without looking back, went downstairs, started the Wrangler, and drove towards the Anran Hotel on Heping Road in the city. The zoo is less than 15 kilometers away from Heping Road. After Su Ming got in the car, he first called the catering department manager of Anran Hotel. Anran Hotel was one of the partners of Huading Fishery, and the two parties were acquaintances. Manager Wang on the other side usually contacted Liang Shi and knew that Su Ming was the real boss behind the scenes. He was very surprised to receive the call. Just as he was about to say a few words, Su Ming didn't waste any time and asked directly, "Mr. Wang, your hotel, is there a fight? A tall woman with long hair is my girlfriend. Please call security to control the situation. I'll be there soon." Yes, if such a thing happens, I will ask someone to handle it immediately." Mr. Wang agreed without hesitation, and then added, "Mr. Su, hurry up. The person opposite is a bit powerful. I am a little kid. I'm afraid the hotel can't afford to offend." It's hard to say how much Mr. Wang's words are based on. Anran Hotel is not a roadside shop. It is somewhat famous in Yangchuan City. There is a boss behind the scenes and someone to protect it. Generally, gangsters don't dare to run wild in that place. Maybe it's because of the other party. The power is indeed not small, and it is possible that Enron Hotel does not want to cause this problem. After all, it is just an ordinary business partnership with the fishing company, and there is no deep friendship. "I know, Mr. Wang, just help me protect him." "I owe you a favor," Su Ming said. After hanging up Mr. Wang's call, Su Ming immediately dialed 110. He hesitated for 2 seconds when he put his hand on the dial button, then let go and dialed the number of the zoo security department. "Old Dong, call Su Ming immediately and bring 10 security guards who are capable of resisting the incident, wearing casual clothes, to the Anran Hotel on Heping Road." As soon as the old director heard this, he immediately knew that something was going on with Su Ming. He definitely didn't invite the security department to the restaurant for dinner. What does it mean to be able to resist trouble? It means being able to fight, dare to fight, and not give up when trouble occurs. Su Ming specifically added this sentence, and his intention was obvious. "Do you want to bring an electric baton?" asked the old director. Su Ming thought for a moment and said, "No, come as soon as possible." "Good." At the zoo, old Dong hung up the phone and turned on the loudspeaker inside the zoo. 3 and 4 security groups, gather at the door of the security room immediately. He turned off the loudspeaker and called the medical center. As expected, Su Ming was there and called over together. Before leaving the house, Lao Dong thought for a moment, opened the drawer, took out a mobile phone-sized electric shock device and stuffed it into his pocket. Within 2 minutes, 10 security guards stood neatly in a row at the door. The 3 groups and 4 groups of security guards were all recruited by Lao Dong himself. They were all veterans. They were completely different from the thin, stooped and hunched security guards in other units. On the contrary, all 10 young men were full of energy, standing in a row like a hill. But it was still not enough to look at in front of Su Ming. Su Meng was just a small watermelon in front of a row of apples, obviously bigger than everyone else. The old director said in a deep voice, "Boss, you have to do something, so change into casual clothes, get in the car and follow me." After the restructuring, the employees in the zoo were called Director Su Meng. As the zoo's treatment became better and better, many people directly called them Boss Su Meng behind their backs. A boss who treats his employees well and is capable is the backbone of his employees everywhere. Following such a legendary boss has almost become bragging rights for the security guards. Security is not a position worth showing off, but when you mention that you are a security guard at a zoo in front of your friends, everyone will look at you and say good job. When they heard that the boss Su Ming was about to do something, these energetic young men suddenly became red-eyed and rushed to the car with howls. After Su Ming made 2 calls, he dialed the number of Nangang Yan and her colleague Shen Ying with the idea of giving it a try, but it didn't go through. The number you dialed is turned off. When the cold wind blew while driving on the road, Su Ming calmed down from his initial rage. Since Ren Chen's incident was completely over, he took back the wasp team that was guarding Nangang Yan. Wherever he went, there was a group of wasps following him. After a long time, some people would inevitably find it strange. Yangchuan City is not a war-torn area with a long pool of tigers and a den. Under normal circumstances, you may not encounter a life-threatening crisis in your lifetime. Now it seems that I was careless. Nangang is indeed from a police family, but she can't write the words "my whole family is police" on her face. If she really encounters a conflict, who knows that she has a background if she doesn't know her? It stands to reason that calling the police at this time is the best choice. The Nangang family has connections in all aspects of the Yangchuan police community. The highest one is the deputy captain of the armed police detachment. Although it is still a long way from the real high-ranking officials and leaders, it is already a small hill in the Yangchuan police community. Su Ming thought about it and decided to go see what was going on. Not long after, the car drove onto Heping Road. Not far away, there was a 3 or 4-story tall front door with the words Anran Hotel shining brightly. A large group of people gathered at the door, blocking the road, and a row of cars kept honking their horns. Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg Nian Bai. Chapter 534. Su Ming parked his car outside the crowd. As soon as he got out of the car, he heard a sharp voice in the crowd shouting, "You can hide in the car, smash it." This voice was not Nangang Yan's. Su Ming's nose was almost crooked with anger. Who is this? So arrogant, smashing other people's cars in broad daylight. Squeezing into the crowd, seeing the smashed beetle in front of him, a stream of blood immediately rushed up his neck. Last time after returning from Hong Kong, Su Ming wanted to buy a car for Nangang. Nangang chose for a long time before choosing these 2 red beetles. It was not expensive. Probably because it was a gift from Su Ming, Nangang always treasured the beetle. Wash the car every 3 days, wax it once every half a month, and go to the Ford's shop to repair any small scratches. The beetle in front of me looked like it was picked up from a garbage recycling station. The front windshield was smashed to pieces, covered with spider-like cracks, the hood was dented with a big hole, and there were several big footprints on the side. The 2 rear-view mirrors were broken and thrown on the ground. The ground was full of glass shards and plastic components, and there were 2 broken mobile phones. No wonder no one called the police. It turned out that the mobile phone was broken. People these days are too indifferent. There were so many onlookers, but no one called the police. Nangang Yan and another girl hid in the car and held the door handle tightly, not daring to come out. A chubby middle-aged woman, holding a chihuahua, stood on the curb and cursed at the beetle. While cursing, she kicked the car door. From the sound, it was the one who wanted to smash the car just now. A tall bald middle-aged man stood beside her, wearing a big gold watch on his hand, and was drunk and directing 3 younger men to smash the car. When Su Ming came out, he saw a drunk man in his 30s who took a brick and smashed it hard on the side window glass of the Beetle. With a clang, the glass was dented. If he hit it again, the glass would be broken, and he could open the window with his hand. The girl sitting by the window inside shrank her head in fear and trembled as she moved towards Nangong. 2 security guards were persuading them, and the bald man pushed the security guards away impatiently. "What nonsense are you talking about? Get out of here. If you keep talking, I'll smash your store too. Sanur, smash the car for me and drag these 2 little out to kneel." "Who are you going to make kneel?" Su Ming reached out and pressed the recording button on the phone in his pocket, stopped in front of the car, and knocked on the door with his backhand. "Where did you come from? Get out of here." The young man called Sanur had picked up another brick from the ground. Su Ming was blocking the car door, so he couldn't smash it down this time. He asked Su Ming with a frown. This man was obviously a follower. Su Ming ignored him, looked at the bald head, and said lightly, "My girlfriend is in the car." "What happened?" "I'll solve it." He glanced at the arms of the middle-aged woman next to him. The Chihuahua had one leg drooping and barked at the car. "Boyfriend? That's great, you decide what to do," the fat woman said loudly. "Sanur, let these 2 little get out of the car." The young men who smashed the car stepped aside. With a click, the car door opened, and Nangong Yan and another girl got out of the car. Su Ming used his arms to protect the 2 girls and pulled them behind him. Nangong Yan was relatively calm, but her hair was a little messy. The other girl was so scared that she burst into tears. Her clothes were torn, revealing a large part of her shoulders, and there was a dark bruise on her face. "Who hit you?" Su Ming turned around and scanned the faces of several people present, and asked Nangong Yan. Nangong Yan took off her small jacket and put it on Shenying's shoulders, saying, "No one hit me." Shenying didn't make it clear on the phone just now. She simply told the story again. The 2 of them came to Anran Hotel for dinner after work. Shenying had just got her driver's license and was itching to drive, so Nangong asked her to drive. When they came out of the garage, a Chihuahua suddenly appeared out of nowhere and blocked the car. Shenying didn't dodge and hit the Chihuahua. Fortunately, she was still clear-headed and didn't mistake the accelerator for the brake like some female drivers, so she quickly braked and stopped. As soon as they got out of the car to check on the puppy, a middle-aged fat woman waiting for a car came up and slapped Shenying. Then a Volvo drove out of the underground garage, and a bald man got out with several people. Nangong just took out her mobile phone to call the police, but the other party snatched her mobile phone and threw it. Shenying just called Su Ming, and before she was halfway through the conversation, her mobile phone was also snatched. Nangong saw that the situation was not good and pulled Shenying into the car and locked the door. Shenying was scared when she called, and Su Ming was also angry at the time. One did not speak clearly, and the other did not hear clearly, and thought Nangong Yan was beaten. "Are you okay?" Su Ming asked Nangong Yan a little worriedly. Nangong Yan had been very calm until Su Ming came, then she breathed a sigh of relief and whispered, "It's okay, I was just scared." Shenying sobbed and said, "Brother Su, I really didn't see the dog, it just jumped out from the roadside." "I know, don't worry." Su Ming nodded and pointed to the outside of the crowd, "You 2 go to my car first, I'll take care of it." Shenying looked at Nangong Yan. Nangong Yan put her arm around her shoulders and comforted her, "Don't worry, leave it to him." The 2 were about to walk out of the crowd. "Are you guys blind?" Watching these 2 little run away, the middle-aged fat woman was not happy. 3 young people surrounded them, blocking Su Ming and the other 3 in the middle, blocking Nangong's way out. Su Ming protected Nangong behind him and asked the 2 people opposite, one fat and one bald, "Is what my girlfriend said just now correct?" "Yes, that's right, they hit my baby," said the fat woman. Su Ming used his mental power to check and found that the Chihuahua was slightly injured, but not dead or disabled. This kind of puppy is the type of people who like to be around, a little bit of a dog relying on the power of others. When the owner is around, it is very arrogant. It dares to tease even a much larger wolf dog. Seeing the owner talking loudly, the Chihuahua became energetic again and barked at Su Ming. "Oh, they hit your dog, you smashed their car and mobile phone, and beat people, what are you going to do now?" Su Ming continued to ask calmly. The fat woman looked at the age and dress of Su Ming and Nangong Yan, as well as the car they drove, and could roughly guess that these people had some money at home, but not to the point where they couldn't afford to offend. If Su Ming brought a helicopter out today, or drove a luxury car worth 3 or 4 million, the fat woman's attitude would definitely be different from now. "How much is that broken car worth? I'll give you two choices. Either kneel down and apologize to my baby, or pay me 200,000 yuan," the fat woman said. "Even if your dog is hit to death, it's not worth 200,000 yuan," Su Ming asked. "Mental damages. Your mother was hit to death. Do you want mental damages?" the fat woman said. "Oh, this dog is your mother," Su Ming sneered and said, "since we can't settle it privately, let's call the police." The bald man with a gold watch who had not spoken a word spoke up, "Call the police." "Okay, I tell you, I'm in Yangchuan City. Go ask around. Is there anything I can't handle in the police or court? The kid is not clear-headed. If you go to the police station, I'll peel your skin off." As he was talking, there was a commotion outside the crowd. A giant-like strong man squeezed out of the crowd and came to the front with a row of strong men with an average height of more than 1.8 meters. Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg Nian Bai. Chapter 535. Old Dong and 10 security guards, plus a little giant like Su Ming, rushed into the crowd. The momentum immediately changed. The 12 strong men were like a wall, blocking Su Ming and the 2 women behind, and the 5 people on the opposite side are isolated. The 3 young men who were still aggressive just now saw that something was wrong, and immediately retreated, standing behind the bald man, staring at this side warily. The bald middle-aged man narrowed his eyes, took out his mobile phone, dialed a number, and said something quickly to the other end of the phone. The fat woman pointed at Su Ming. Do you think you'll go crazy after calling a few people? If you have the guts, don't run away, I'll kill you." "Boss, what should I do?" Old Dong asked in a low voice. "Protect them both." Su Ming nodded to Old Dong, walked to a row of security guards, and said to the middle-aged bald man who had hung up the phone, "This matter can no longer be explained clearly. I suggest you call the police. Dog, the car, the 2 mobile phones, the slap you gave my friend, and the torn clothes will be dealt with by the police in accordance with the law, and they will do whatever they want. I don't want any money today. There are so many of you, why don't you kneel down? My people will come later, and none of you can escape." The bald man has obviously seen the world, and he can't be scared by these dozen people. "Leave him. What can you do to us after we enter the police station?" Su Ming asked in a calm tone. "How about it? You're young and don't understand shit. Do you think the police can speak for you? Let me tell you, the police station and court are all my friends. If I get into the police, I will kill you," the bald man said arrogantly. Okay, Su Ming suddenly laughed, "since we say that, we don't dare to go to the police station, so let's settle the accounts here one by one." Without waiting for the other party to speak, Su Ming pointed to the dog in the fat woman's arms. "You said this dog was injured. Where is the injury?" As soon as he finished speaking, the Chihuahua who had been lying in the fat woman's arms suddenly became energetic, squeezed out of her arms with all his strength, jumped to the ground, barked twice, and ran away. "Hey baby!" the fat woman called after her, but the Chihuahua didn't listen to her at all. In a blink of an eye, he got out of the gap in the crowd and ran out of sight. The people around him all laughed. The puppy was jumping around so much that he couldn't even catch it. It looked like he was injured at all. Since you're not injured, your account is settled, and it's time to settle our account. Su Ming still had a smile on his face, but his voice became darker little by little. Is that Volvo yours? Old Dong, bring someone to smash the car for me. See clearly what the Beetle looked like after it was smashed. Just smash the Volvo into nothing, let's not take advantage of them. Let's do the three things together, just repeat the plot once. How dare you? The fat woman's expression changed. The two Volvos costing more than 700,000 yuan were not actually their cars. They were borrowed from a related party. Even if they were really smashed, the other party would not let them pay compensation, but in terms of face it's really hard to get through. A few security guards didn't care what the fat woman said, but they didn't let them carry electric batons when they came. Everyone had a rubber-covered baton hidden in their sleeves. With a flick of their wrist, a row of security guards came up with batons and surrounded the Volvo. Old Dong looked back at Su Ming and waited for his signal. At this point, the bald man could tell that this young man probably didn't just have a little money in his family. Without a certain amount of power, he would never dare to be so arrogant. For example, he and this fat woman, the fat woman is a section chief of the Municipal Bureau of Industry and Commerce. One sentence can determine the life or death of a small business. Even those listed companies have to fawn over from behind. He himself is engaged in contract construction, and his subordinates he maintains a group of people and undertakes the business of the largest real estate company in the province all year round. He wants money and people, and he takes both black and white. If you think clearly, if you dare to smash a car, don't hang out in Yangchuan City in the future. I guarantee that your whole family will get into a car accident when you go out. The bald man stared at Su Ming with sinister eyes and said every word. He could afford to pay for a Volvo, but he couldn't afford to lose his face. If a young man smashed his car on the street and didn't retaliate, his face would have been thrown into the gutter. Many partners would think that he could no longer protect him. Those enemies who have conflicts in the business field will take the opportunity to jump out and step on him. Su Ming looked at Old Dong and signaled him not to take action yet. He turned to Bald Head and said, "Let me ask you one last time, should we call the police?" The muscles on the bald man's face twitched for a few times. Calling the police now is just giving in. He still can't save his face. If he takes action, their people haven't arrived yet. No matter how powerful the power behind him is, there are only 4 men in front of him. If they really fight, they will definitely not be the opponent. Opponents of more than a dozen strong men can only suffer the immediate loss. Seeing the sudden reversal of the situation, the surrounding crowd started to boo, and those who had originally taken out their mobile phones to call the police also stopped and waited to watch the excitement. "Oh, I'm cowardly. Smashing his car and bullying women is nothing. Smash. Young man, when the police come, we will testify for you that they are bullying you." The sense of justice is like a little girl who is afraid of ghosts. She never appears alone in the dark and only stands out when there are many people. Most ordinary people are deeply disgusted with the bullying of bald and fat women, not to mention 2 pitiful pretty girls on one side, and a fat woman with a fleshy face and a few old gangsters on the other side. Seeing Su Ming gain the upper hand, and more people began to boo. The bald man was in a dilemma now. Agreeing to call the police was no different from admitting his weakness. He pulled the fat woman back and stared at Su Ming's face for a while, as if he wanted to remember this face in his heart. He whispered to the fat woman, "Let them smash it and wait for our people to arrive." After that, he said to Su Ming, "Boy, if you have the guts, smash it. If you don't smash it today, you are a bitch." At this point, there was no room for easing. The old boss was going to take action without Su Ming's order. "Wait a minute." Su Ming waved his hand to signal him to wait, pointed at the bald man and the fat woman, and turned back to ask Nangong Yan, "Who beat your colleague just now?" Shen Ying was stunned. She thought that Su Ming had come forward to rescue them and the matter was over. She didn't expect that this man, who was actually 2 years younger than her, had such a violent side in his bones, which was completely different from what he showed when they met before. The key is that it was not Nangong Yan who was beaten, but her. Su Ming asked this question, obviously to help her vent her anger. But she was really wrong about this. Shen Ying and Nangong went out together and were beaten up. Su Ming was helping Nangong. "Brother Su, forget it. I'm fine." Shen Ying bit her lip and hadn't finished speaking when Nangong pulled her and said to Su Ming, "It was that fat woman. She almost slapped me." Nangong was a typical second-generation police officer. From childhood to adulthood, she didn't bully others, and she had never been bullied by anyone. This time, she got angry. Su Ming understood her character, and she also understood Su Ming's thoughts. If Su Ming was bullied, Nangong would not let it go. Not to mention smashing the other party's car in the street, she might even steal her father's gun and kill the couple in a rage. Nangong wanted to do it once and for all, so he stretched out his hand to Su Ming. "Give me the phone, I'll make a few calls." Su Ming handed the phone to Nangong and snapped his fingers at Lao Dong. "Go ahead, do it again like you did just now." Lao Dong nodded, and several security guards rushed forward like wolves and tigers. The 3 young men on the other side wanted to do it, but when they saw the batons in the hands of the security guards, they obviously hesitated. After such hesitation, the 4 security guards quickly handcuffed the bald man and the fat woman's hands behind their backs and took them to Lao Dong. With a crisp sound, Lao Dong slapped the fat woman with an expressionless face. You, if you dare to hit me, I'll kill your whole family." The fat woman's eyes were full of stars, and her teeth were about to be knocked out. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg Nian Bai. Chapter 536. The following is indeed a reenactment of the original plot, except that the protagonist of the story has changed. The 4 security guards stood in a row with their arms folded, staring at the 3 young men who were ready to make a move. The old boss searched the bald man and the fat woman's mobile phones, smashed them on the ground, and then threw the car keys out, stuffed the 2 into the Volvo, and took the remaining 6 security guards with rubber batons to smash the Volvo. Bang 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 bang, the glass in front and behind was smashed to pieces, and the fat woman screamed like a pig in the car, and was so angry that she was about to explode. Su Ming did not do anything, but stood by the car. Every time the fat woman wanted to open the door to escape from the car, Su Ming kicked the door hard as soon as the door opened a crack. After a while, several large footprints appeared on the doors on both sides. Nangong Yan quickly dialed a few numbers, whispered a few words to the other end, nodded to Su Ming, and returned the phone to him. Su Ming thought about it and called Wang Jianshi's secretary. Nangong's colleague Shen Ying, who was beaten, had been staring at Su Ming with a complicated look. She and Nangong Yan were good friends. She had met Su Ming more than once at various gatherings before. They had simple chats and dealings, and she knew a little about Su Ming's worth. Working at the TV station, Shen Ying had seen too many rich people. Even if Su Ming bought a helicopter, in the eyes of the beautiful female hosts at the TV station, it was not particularly amazing. It could only be regarded as a good condition. Compared with those real big bosses of listed companies, there was still a certain distance, such as Ren Chen of the education group. Like the group of girls in their radio station, they generally have similar destinations in the future, either marrying a wealthy businessman or marrying an official, so Shen Ying only thought that Nangong's boyfriend was pretty good before, and she was not particularly envious. Sometimes she even felt that Nangong's boyfriend was too kind and lacked a bit of masculine dominance, not as imposing as other rich people she had seen. But after such a commotion today, Shenying's thoughts changed suddenly. She knew very well what kind of adverse effects smashing cars and beating people in the street would have. Now everyone has a mobile phone, and no matter how strong the relationship is, it is impossible to cover it up. For an entrepreneur who is in the rising stage of his career, it is definitely a big trouble. If it were any other boss, he would definitely think twice before doing it, or simply change another way and retaliate in secret. Su Ming smashed cars and people without hesitation, which can only mean one thing, that he just wanted to support Nangong and vent for her, even if his career was affected. It can be said that he was impulsive, but from a woman's point of view, this man clearly regarded Nangong as the most precious treasure, even more than his career. There are many rich men, but there are few rich men who can put their girlfriends first, at least Shenying has never seen one. But she saw one today. What women want is a support, whether it is spiritual or economic. No matter how rich they are, if they don't take you seriously, even if they marry you home, they still have a lot of people outside. In just a few minutes, Shenying thought a lot and couldn't help but feel envious of Nangong for the first time. She didn't even realize that this envy was mixed with a hint of jealousy. The car smashing lasted for several minutes. The front and rear windshields and windows of the Volvo SUV were all smashed to pieces. The left door had long been deformed and hung crookedly on the car body. The crowd parted and the police finally came. They were 110. What's going on? Who did it? The leading police stared at Su Ming and asked. Su Ming looked back and saw Nangong Yan shook her head slightly at him. The bald man and the fat woman got out of the deformed car. As soon as they got out of the door of the Volvo fell to the ground with a bang. Director Lee, these people illegally detained and deliberately injured people. You have to make the decision for us ordinary people. The fat woman strode behind the leading police officer and pointed at Su Ming and said loudly. Brother Li. The bald man took out cigarettes and distributed cigarettes to the leading police officer. Director Lee didn't take the cigarette, and walked to a group of zoo security guards. His face sank. What's going on? Why are so many people gathered here, in broad daylight? Are you going to smash, loot, and rob? Cuff them all and take them back for questioning. Without asking any questions, the big hat was put on him, smashing, looting and robbing. A group of policemen behind him were about to come up to arrest people. Su Ming stood up and looked at Director Lee, who was leading the team. Comrade, there was a conflict between our two sides, and you arrested people without asking the truth. Is there such a provision in the law? Why are you filming, Xiao Li? Whoever dares to film again will be considered obstructing public service, and the phone will be confiscated. Director Lee scolded the crowd of onlookers who were filming with their mobile phones. Immediately, several policemen strode into the crowd, shouted loudly, showed their police officer IDs, and dispersed the crowd. Do you know the law or do I know the law? Director Lee said to Su Ming sternly. I tell you, I am a policeman, the police represent the law. Today I will arrest you according to the law. Comrade, you are wrong, the police only have the power to enforce the law, they do not represent the law, the police must also act according to the law. In addition, the law is clear, it is not the law that you say. Even if the law needs to be interpreted, it is the job of the National People's Congress and the court. The police have no right to interpret the law, Nangong Yan said on the side. Little girl, don't be stubborn, I tell you, the police are the law, I am the law. Arrest them all. Just as the police officers he brought were about to take action, the zoo refused to do so, and a group of security guards rushed over and blocked Su Ming. What are you going to do? Director Lee's face suddenly darkened. The bald man and the fat woman sneered smugly behind him. As long as they were arrested in the police station, they could do whatever they wanted. He didn't believe that this young man, no matter how bold and rich he was, would dare to confront the police directly on the street. If he really dared to do this, even his father couldn't stop him. At this moment, another police car drove over from the other direction, and a policeman got out of the police car. "Hello, Director Li, I'm Xiao Yang from the Nanjing branch." The young policeman nodded to Nangong Yan, strode to Director Li, saluted first, turned to Nangong and said, "Nangong, why are you here? Do you know each other?" Director Li frowned and asked. "Our Deputy Director Nangong's niece." The young policeman smiled, and then said to Nangong, "This is Deputy Director Li of the Biang branch, and he is a friend of your uncle." This police officer Xiao Yang spoke very well. Although his words were polite, he revealed two pieces of information. First, this Director Li is a deputy director, at the same level as Nangong's uncle, not a big official, nor a top leader. Second, his jurisdiction is in the Biang branch. The location of the incident and Heping Road are not under the jurisdiction of Nanjing branch, nor are they under the jurisdiction of Biang branch. Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg Nian Bai. Chapter 537. Nangong understood half of what Officer Xiao Yang said, while Su Ming understood everything. Nangong was still a little hesitant about whether to smooth things over, so Su Ming pulled her hand from behind. There are some things that Officer Xiao Yang cannot say directly in front of Director Li. If he really wanted Nangong to get close to him, Officer Xiao Yang would not identify Director Li as the deputy director in public no matter what. The difference of one word makes a huge difference in status. When the subordinates of any unit address the leader as deputy in person when the principal is absent, they will subconsciously remove the word deputy. Otherwise, the person who said it will inevitably be exposed. The suspicion of short-term leadership makes people feel unhappy. Uncle Nangong sent Officer Xiao Yang to deal with it, which definitely shows that he recognizes Officer Xiao Yang's ability. Officer Xiao Yang is definitely not a dumb guy who doesn't understand anything. Since he pointed out that the other party is the deputy director in front of so many people, it definitely means that he recognizes Officer Xiao Yang's ability. There is a deeper meaning. Even if he didn't mean it deeply, Su Ming would not call this bullshit Uncle Director Li. He took a step forward and said to Officer Xiao Yang with a straight face, "Comrade, we are dealing with official business. His position has nothing to do with the case itself. This matter should be handled how to handle it. We will cooperate with the investigation and hope that the police will enforce the law impartially." "What are you talking about? You're so ignorant," Officer Xiao Yang turned around and said with a straight face. However, Su Ming clearly saw a look of appreciation in his eyes. Director Li frowned. He and Deputy Director Nangong of the Nanjing branch were in the same system and had the same position. Of course they had dealt with each other before. The two parties had normal business dealings and there was no special friendship. Under other circumstances, he wouldn't mind giving Deputy Director Nangong face. But this doesn't work. Director Li waved his hand and motioned for Xiao Yang to get out of the way. He narrowed his eyes and sneered at Su Ming, "It's business, handcuff them all and take them back." Officer Xiao Yang wanted to say something else. Su Ming suddenly shook his head at him, turned to Director Li and said, "I am willing to go back and cooperate with the investigation, but is this the jurisdiction of your Biang branch?" Xiao Yang knew that Su Ming completely understood what he meant, so he smiled, stood aside with his hands behind his back, and looked at Director Li with a smile. "Okay, you want people from the jurisdiction to take charge, right? Xiao Li, call the Heping Road police station." Director Li looked a little ugly and ordered the policeman he brought with him calmly. In terms of jurisdiction, this place is directly under the jurisdiction of the Heping Road police station. Although the police station chief is not from their Biang branch, he is relatively close to him. Going to the Heping Road police station is not much different from taking him to the Biang branch. Officer Xiao Yang coughed and winked at Nangong Yan. At this time, Nangong, who had been silent, had completely understood one thing: Director Li has a very strong relationship with the other party. No matter what, he cannot go to Director Li's territory. Nangong Yan took 2 steps forward, took the phone from Su Ming's hand, went to the side and made a low-pitched call. When the people from the Hepping Road police station arrive, it will be okay for me to protect the scene here, right? Director Li sneered at Officer Xiao Yang. Leader, I'm just passing by. You act in accordance with the law. Of course I support it. If the police force is not enough, I will definitely cooperate, Officer Xiao Yang said with a smile. The two sides were in a stalemate, and the people brought by Director Li began to take photos of the scene. The photos were also taken very well. They were all of the smashed Volvo and the fat woman's clothes that were torn apart during the tearing process. The slap marks on her face were all taken during the whole process. Not giving the beetle a shot. After about 10 minutes, the third police car arrived. A chubby policeman got out of the car. Judging from the police badge on his shoulder, he was one level older than Director Li. What's going on? Xiao Yang, why are you here? Director Li, are you here too? The fat police officer seemed quite friendly. When he got out of the car, he saw both parties and asked with a smile. Hello, Director Huang. Good leader. Director Li and Xiao Yang greeted each other respectfully at the same time, but they had different thoughts in their minds. Xiao Yang felt relaxed for a while. Director Li secretly cursed his bad luck, but still took a step slower, startling the smiling tiger. Okay, it's a hot day, everyone is suffering. Director Huang got out of the car and walked a few steps, sweating, and while wiping the sweat, he said to the two of them, I received a call, and I heard that your Biang branch was alarmed. Deputy Director, I thought there was a big case, so I came here in person. He glanced at the scene and asked with concern, is there anyone dead? No, Xiao Li said quickly. Are you not seriously injured or disabled? Director Huang asked again. No, Xiao Li added. That's good, that's good. Fatty Huang wiped his sweat and said with a smile, in any case, this area is my jurisdiction. It's my fault for not doing my work meticulously. I feel ashamed. The perpetrators on both sides should come back to the bureau with me to assist in the investigation. After saying that, he turned around and walked towards the police car. Su Ming glanced at Officer Xiao Yang, who nodded at him. This Director Huang is the official director of the Wulai branch. Hepping Road is the jurisdiction of the Hepping Road police station under the Wulai branch. There is nothing wrong with Director Huang taking the person away. Director Huang usually has a nickname called Smiling Tiger. He smiles all day long and does not offend anyone. However, Director Li knows that Director Huang's sister-in-law works in the Municipal Armed Police Detachment and holds the civilian title of Second Lieutenant, and the brother of Deputy Director Nangong of the Nanshan branch is the Deputy Detachment Leader of the Municipal Armed Police Detachment. He's so good. Why did you poke this hornet's nest? Director Li's cell phone vibrated, and he opened it and took a quick look, seeing a simple text message. He frowned. He couldn't understand at all that the person behind the bald head was also in the business world. In the business world, peace of mind leads to wealth. Why would the other party take the risk of offending several powerful people with such a firm attitude? I hope that I will do my best to bring these young people into the bureau, even if they are not held accountable afterwards and let go. Isn't this thankless? Due to the deep and inseparable relationship between the two parties, Director Li hesitated for 2 seconds, then strode up to follow. Director Huang, wait a minute. Director Huang had half of his body in the police car, and looked back at Deputy Director Li. Although there was still a smile on his face, his voice was no longer so pleasant, and he said slowly, Deputy Director Li, is everything okay? With the addition of an adverb, the attitude is completely different. This is a superior speaking to a subordinate. Director Li was choked with words. Well, it's nothing. Director Huang, you are busy. We just took some photos of the scene. I can provide them to your bureau if necessary. Okay, I understand. Thank you. Director Wang's voice softened again, and he waved his hand and got into the car. The police car took both parties away from here. On the street corner not far away, a black BMW 7 Series sedan also caught fire and slowly left. Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg Nian Bai. Chapter 538. There were only 3 people in the black BMW 7. The driver was strong but expressionless in the front seat, and there were 2 people in the back seat, a middle-aged man in his 40s and a very young boy. The young man had an indescribable smile on his face. At first glance, he looked very friendly, but if you looked at him for a long time, you would feel that he was aloof and untouchable. The smile on his face was just a mask. He was arrogant and kept people away. The other middle-aged man had a gloomy face. "Mr. Sun, you see, it's all my fault for what happened today. I had agreed to treat you to a few days in Yangchuan City, but I didn't expect that such a small thing would alarm you." The middle-aged man was dressed like a successful person, but in front of this young man, both his words and expressions were full of flattery. "Mr. Guo, you are too polite. My father told me to learn more from Mr. Guo. I am here to broaden my horizons today," the young man called Mr. Sun said in a neutral tone. Hearing this, Guo Dachan, chairman of Bei Real Estate Company, felt a little nervous. Bei Real Estate Company is the largest local real estate company in Yangchuan City. Recently, it is preparing to enter the provincial capital. After going through several strong relationships, it invited this little god in front of it to the headquarters of Bei Group in Yangchuan City for inspection. Just to meet this little god through connections, Mr. Guo has made arrangements and given benefits to several relationships in the middle, up to 1 or 2 million. But all this is worth it. As long as this little god nods and protects him, Bei Company can walk sideways in the entire provincial capital Jiangjan City, and even the entire province. What is the previous investment of 2 million? By then, hundreds of millions, tens of billions, and tens of billions can roll back. It was a matter of life and death. When entertaining Mr. Sun for dinner, Guo Dachan received a call from one of his contractors, the bald guy just now, saying that he had a conflict with someone. He could have ignored this matter, just a contractor, but his sister had been having a hot relationship with the contractor recently and happened to be at the scene, so Guo Dachan still smiled and apologized, and went outside the box to make a phone call to explain. Although Mr. Sun was young, he came from a noble family and had an extraordinary ability to read people's words and expressions. He guessed that Guo Dachan must have something wrong with him at a glance, so he smiled and pushed the bank card back from the table. "I don't know how many people lined up to give money to this Mr. Sunday. He doesn't care about any money. To put it bluntly, being willing to accept money is a face giving, which means that he is willing to protect him." Seeing that Prince Sun returned the card, the cold sweat on old Guo's forehead almost flowed down. Mr. Sun followed up with a sentence, "There's no point in eating. Mr. Guo, you go ahead and do your work. I'll go with you to see the world." Mr. Guo immediately understood that Mr. Sun wanted to see how much power his Bei Group had in Yangchuan City and whether it could cover it. If it couldn't even cover Yangchuan City, its base camp, what qualifications did Bei Group have to develop in the provincial capital? If you want to be Mr. Sun's younger brother, you must have strength. The moment he saw the man who smashed his sister's car, Mr. Sun's smile became even stronger, and Mr. Guo frowned. It turned out that Su Ming was in the limelight in Yangchuan City. When Mr. Guo held the Entrepreneurs Association, he met him several times and recognized him. If Su Ming could be taken down, it would be enough to prove the strength of Bei, but this person is different from the general boss. He may not have as much money as Bei Group, but the halos on his head can definitely crush people. That's why there was the scene just now. Mr. Guo asked Director Li to take the man away no matter what, even if he went to the police station and asked his sister to apologize to the other party behind his back. Because at a street corner not far away, Mr. Sun was in the car with a smile on his face, watching the scene in the distance. Who knew that the matter became more and more serious, alarming several people in the branch, and finally did not take the man away. This face was completely ruined. Mr. Guo gritted his teeth, took out the card just now, handed it to Mr. Sun with both hands, and said with a smile, "Mr. Sun, I have a small import and export company in the provincial capital, and I can still make tens of millions a year. I want to concentrate on real estate. I wonder if you have any friends who are knowledgeable in the business to help me take care of it. As for the money, I will take 30% of the shares." In addition to the bank card with an astonishing amount, in one sentence, he gave away 70% of the shares of a company with an annual income of tens of millions. Unexpectedly, Mr. Sun still kept smiling, without even looking at the card, looking out the window, and said lightly, "Mr. Guo, business is not easy to do, why put all the eggs in one basket, you keep the company. I will go back to the provincial capital tomorrow." Mr. Guo's face turned green instantly. This Mr. Sun came to Yangchuan City, did not accept the card, did not accept the company, and went back empty-handed, which not only meant that he would not be able to help him enter the provincial capital in the future, but also meant that even if he used other relationships, he would not be able to develop towards the provincial capital Jiangjan City. As long as the family of this Mr. Sun was there, Bai would not be able to expand towards the provincial capital. If the news spread, even the business of other cities in the province, and even Yangchuan City, would be greatly affected. Thinking of this, Mr. Guo made up his mind, took out his phone, and called his biggest backer in front of Mr. Sunday. No matter what, Su Ming must be brought down. "I'm Xiao Guo." Su Ming and Nangong got on the police car. They were not harassed or treated any better along the way. When they entered the Wulai police station, Director Huang did not show up. Instead, the deputy political commissar named Guo came and found out the situation. In the final analysis, the two parties were fighting and it was a civil dispute. After some mediation. After entering the police station, the fat woman finally stopped talking about mental damage. It was just a chihuahua, even if it was hit to death, it was not worth much money, not to mention that the chihuahua was very flexible in front of everyone at the time, and the dog in question ran away, so there was no way to calculate. Someone from both sides was slapped. Although the fat woman was hit a bit hard and her face is still swollen, the boss was very measured. The fat woman's swollen face looked scary, but the injury examination could not find anything, so they could only hold their noses and let it go. The only thing they could talk about was the car. Nangong's Beetle cost 250,000, and the other party's Volvo cost 820,000. The people who smashed the cars were all caught on the spot. The insurance company would not pay, so they asked a professional from a repair shop next to the branch to ask. After the two cars were repaired, in addition to the part that offset each other, Su Ming would have to pay an extra 240,000. Deputy Political Commissar Guo, who was mediating, said, "Are there any problems? If not, just sign the mediation agreement." Su Ming definitely had no problems. He had beaten people, smashed cars, and was angry. It was nothing more than spending a few 100,000. These hundreds of thousands were not given to the other party, but to the repair shop. He was willing to do it and was calm. The bald man and the fat woman were just the opposite. They were furious when they got in the car. They were used to bullying people, but this was the first time they felt so aggrieved that they had to swallow their anger. "Boy, if you have guts, we'll settle the score when you get out," the bald man signed and slammed the pen on the table. Before Su Ming could speak, Deputy Political Commissar Guo glared at him and slapped him on the table. "What are you doing? Are you threatening people in front of the police? Do you want to stay in the police station for a few days? If you do, I'll help you." You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg Nian Bai. Chapter 539. Political Commissar Yuan actually handled this matter fairly and impartially today. If you intentionally favor one party and smash a car in the street, causing a big quarrel, the characterization can be very serious. If the quarrel is minor, it is nothing more than a civil dispute, and both parties will pay according to their losses. Commissar Yuan, thank you. This time Su Ming stood up and shook hands with the deputy political commissar. He, you're welcome, you're welcome. We are all businessmen, and being friendly makes us rich. We are young. Let's all be less idle and make more money. I don't know if it was influenced by Director Huang, but Deputy Yuan the political commissar also smiled as soon as he opened his mouth and looked friendly. He nodded to Nangong Yan first and said, Xiao Nangong, how is your dad's health recently? I went to the city for a meeting last time and chatted for a few words. Look at him. He was in such a good mood that I thought he was going to be promoted. Later I heard that he had found a good son-in-law. I saw that your boyfriend is really a promising young man. No wonder your dad is happy. Nangong was amused. Deputy Political Commissar Yuan actually had no friendship with her father, they just knew each other. If someone who didn't know the inside story listened to Political Commissar Yuan, they would think that their relationship was very strong. Lao Yuan was indeed good at talking. He didn't praise Nangong for being beautiful or anything else, but directly praised Su Ming. Nangong felt even happier and said with a smile, Uncle Yuan, my dad often mentions you. No, I'm going to mess with you again today. Sorry, I say thank you too lightly for a senior. I told my dad that he would come to thank you personally. Political Commissar Yuan waved his hand and said with a smile, Xiao Su, Director Huang is still in the office. If you two have nothing else to do, why don't you go to Lao Wang's place? It was a question, but there was not much discussion in the tone. After speaking, he stood up and turned around to lead the way. Apparently, Director Huang wanted to see Su Ming and Nangong Yan. Okay, Su Ming and Nangong Yan looked at each other and followed. Director Huang was reading the newspaper in the office. When he saw the guests arriving, he exchanged greetings with Deputy Political Commissar Yuan, and Deputy Political Commissar Yuan made an excuse and left. There were only 3 people left in the office. Director Huang stood up and made Su Ming and Nangong Yan a cup of tea with a smile. Thank you, Uncle Huang, Nangong Yan said sweetly. As long as she was helping, she was always an uncle behind her back. Huang Fati also chatted with Nangong Yan for a few words as usual, and then drank tea with a smile while holding the teacup. Su Ming winked at Nangong Yan. Nangong Yan understood, stood up and also found a reason, saying to go to Shenyang was scared to be alone in the bureau, so she went to accompany him and left the office. There were only 2 people left in the office. Su Ming started the conversation first, Director Huang, thank you very much this time. Not to mention thank you. What you did was a bit too much. Of course, the other party hit someone first. You are young, a little impulsive, and don't think things through, which is understandable. In the end, except for the 2 cars, there was no one causing other personal and property losses. Director Huang said with a smile, everyone has been young, and it's better to be angry than a beauty. However, this kind of thing can only be done occasionally. I have a good relationship with Nangong's father and several uncles. I can barely be regarded as your elders. Su Ming quickly said, I'm just an elder, don't force it, he. Director Huang nodded, then I will talk to you from the perspective of an elder. I don't need to say more about your current status. You know in your heart that it is not easy to get to this point. To be honest, if it weren't for your business and fame right in front of me, I wouldn't have believed there was such an awesome person. Su Ming nodded and said with a smile, It's mostly luck. Uncle Huang deserves the award. It's not a reward, these are real things. Anyway, in most of my life, I have never seen anyone truly start from scratch and rise faster than you. Director Huang said, his face straightened, and he said, it is precisely because it is not easy and rare that we should cherish ourselves more. It is a good thing for young people to be strong and diligent, but those who are strong are easy to break. There are too many young talents. It was not destroyed at the hands of the enemy, but defeated by one's own spirit. Strictly speaking, it was the first time that Lao Huang and Su Ming met today. Although the uncle's name was very affectionate, the relationship between the two parties was not deep. After all, he and the Nangong family are not in a superior-subordinate relationship, and they don't even work in the same jurisdiction. The overlap between the two parties' work is limited. The relationship was not deep, but there was no conflict, so Su Ming understood that Lao Wang's seemingly nosy words to him were actually out of good intentions and for his own good. He was not an ungrateful person. He stood up and said seriously, Director Huang, to be honest, I thought of the worst consequences of what happened today, and I also understood that it would affect my reputation and cause bad consequences. But things when it comes to Nangong Yan, I plan to risk everything. You sit down, Director Huang waved his hand with a smile and motioned for Su Ming to sit down. After he sat down again, he said, no wonder Director Nangong is happy, he has found the right son-in-law, little Nangong is lucky. I understand what you are saying. As I said just now, it's better to be angry than a beauty. When I was in school, I also fought for my girlfriend. He took out a pack of cigarettes from the table, thought about it, stuffed the cigarettes back into the drawer, and said with a smile, actually, I personally don't like people who don't treat others as human beings when they have some money. I don't think of myself as a nouveau riche. However, I know Mr. Guo, the boss of Bei Group. He is usually very reliable in his conduct and work. He is not this kind of person. Do you have any conflicts with him? Su Ming of Bei Group knows that it is the largest local real estate company in Yangchuan City, a listed company, and a large enterprise with assets of billions. That bald man, isn't he the boss of Bei Group? Su Ming asked. That's not the case. He is a contractor under Bei Group. But the fat woman is the biological sister of Mr. Guo of Bei Group, old Huang said. Su Ming recalled carefully. There was no conflict between his business scope and Bei Group. Although the newly established real estate company was in the same industry, its size was not at the same level as Bei Group, and it was impossible to be competitive. Besides, if he had to do dirty work just because he was in the same industry, he might as well change his career to become a killer. Why do he still want to do business? Bei and I have no intersection, so there should be no conflict, Su Ming said with certainty. Oh, that's simple. Mr. Guo's sister is not a good person. She always makes trouble for Lao Guo. Hi. Old Huang shook his head with an expression of you know. Su Ming understood the first meaning and the second. Old Huang was hinting to him that the other party had a very strong brother, and it was better to stop here and not mention it. Su Ming didn't care. He was angry. He paid a small amount of money, not directly to the other party but to the repair shop. Of course, if the other party persists, there is nothing that can be done, as he still has a recording in his pocket. Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg Nian Bai. Chapter 540. After leaving the branch, he took out the card and gave it to the boss, asking him to go back and divide it among the security guards who were on a mission today. This card was the pocket money that Su Ming usually carried with him, not much, less than 140,000 yuan left. Isn't this a bit too much? The boss took a breath. 10 security guards came, and each of them got more than 10,000 yuan on average. Everyone was happy this time, but it would be difficult to handle similar things next time. When it comes to dividing money, You can only get more but not less. At least it should be equal, otherwise the people behind will complain. It's impossible to give 10,000 yuan to each person every time there is a need to take action in the future. Not all of it. Su Ming waved his hand and said, give each of the security guards who are on a mission today a bonus of 1,000 yuan. You and Su Meng will each get 3,000 yuan. The rest of the money is considered as a benefit for the security department, to purchase equipment, improve food, and keep some flexible bonuses. How to spend it is up to you, boss. Don't doubt people when you employ them, and don't employ them when you doubt them. Since the security department was handed over to the old boss, Su Ming himself would not interfere in the work of winning people's hearts. All of it was the old boss's responsibility, so that he could establish his authority in the security department and command and dispatch in the future. Anyway, no matter what, the security guards knew that the money was paid by themselves, so that was fine. Okay, don't worry. The old boss nodded and left with the people and the card. If there is a chance, please thank that Yang for me. Su Ming said to Nangong. Xiao Yang is okay, I have known him since I was a child and call him brother, Nangong said. Well? How many good brothers do you have? Su Ming asked, pretending to be jealous. Nangong experienced several extreme emotions today. At first, she was scared by the other party smashing her car, but she just pretended to be calm. Later, she was bullied by the other party and was very angry. From childhood to adulthood, it was the first time someone threatened her like this. In the end, Su Ming helped her vent her anger regardless of anything, and even did it in front of people all over the street and her bestie, and her heart became sweet again. In general, she was in a good mood. She leaned her head on Su Ming's shoulder and said with a smile, there are many brothers, but you are the only good brother. This is a private conversation between lovers. The two were flirting in the front, and Su Ming suddenly remembered that there was someone sitting behind him. Su Ming's shoulder moved slightly, and Nangong immediately understood it. He sat up straight and turned to Yang Ying behind him and smiled, Yang Ying, where do you live? I'll take you home first. I scared you today. Go back and rest early. It is said that when women are together, no matter how big the matter is, it is not as important as buying. When fighting, the two women's clothes were more or less torn. Just now, while Su Ming and Fatty Huang were chatting for a while, Nangong took Yang Ying to the street outside the door and bought 2 new sets of clothes. Yang Ying sat in the back seat and had always been quite insignificant. When Su Ming mentioned it, she hesitated for a moment and said, I'm fine. Anyway, we haven't eaten yet. Why don't I treat you two to dinner? Thank you. Today's incident is all my fault. If I hadn't insisted on using Nangong's car to practice, there wouldn't be any subsequent incidents. Su Ming didn't say anything, but slightly tilted his head to glance at Nangong. Nangong turned back and smiled at Shen Ying, what's there to thank for this? It's all because of that dog that suddenly jumped out. You are still calm. If it were me, I might have stepped on the accelerator instead of the brake when I was nervous, and that would be a big trouble. Nangong was kind-hearted and didn't want Shen Ying to have any psychological burden. Today's incident, before and after, both parties spent nearly 1 million yuan, not to mention the impact and subsequent handling. In the final analysis, it really has something to do with Shen Ying. That was also caused by me. Oh, brother Su, those people seem to have some background, they won't cause you trouble, right? Shen Ying asked. It doesn't matter, the matter is over. Su Ming looked at the road ahead and said without looking back. If the other party really pesters him, haha. Su Ming touched his mobile phone, which still had the recording of the scene. Just the sentence, I have connections in the police station and the court, I will skin you alive in the police station, is enough to give the other party a blow that will make him unable to get up. That's good. I'm hungry too. Shen Ying secretly glanced at Su Ming's profile and said, you choose the place, I'll pay. Okay, I'll give you a big meal today. Have a big meal. Let's go to the newly opened Japanese restaurant on the pedestrian street, Nangong said. Su Ming was speechless. What does a big meal have to do with Japanese food? A cat's big meal is more like that. Brother Su, a man, is he used to eating Japanese food? Shenying asked Nangong Yan, but her voice was just right for Su Ming to hear. Have it, I love Japanese food the most. Su Ming smiled. Ah, Shenying was stunned. Nangong smiled and patted Su Ming on the shoulder. Don't talk nonsense to him, he can eat anything. In a Japanese restaurant, a few girls in kimonos are Chinese at first glance, speaking distorted Japanese. They have to put on slippers and sit cross-legged on the tatami when they enter the small room. If Shenying hadn't been there, Su Ming would have almost squatted there. Japanese food is exquisite and beautiful, and the tableware is very beautiful. As for the portion, as Su Ming has always believed, it is only used to feed cats. A large table of dishes is probably not enough for the cats in his feng shui pavilion. At the table, Shenying kept toasting Su Ming. The sake was not strong, and the other party was Nangong's friend. Su Ming didn't want to offend her, so he drank a lot. He was a little drunk. He didn't think much about what he was going to ask Nangong in private. In front of Shenying, he found a topic to bring it up. If you are tired of work, just stop working. I just need some help here, Su Ming said. What can I do if I go to your place? Nangong pouted and said, you will support me. It's okay for me to support you. If you want to do something, that's even better. To be honest, the company is short of people now, especially those who deal with the media. I have to go there myself every time. Su Ming put his chopsticks flat and smiled. You forgot, when I was doing the cruise business, I said that when the business gets bigger, you will be my spokesperson. It was a joke at the time, but Su Ming didn't expect to remember it all the time. Nangong stared at him for several seconds. You are not drunk, are you kidding? No, Su Ming shook his head. Lack of manpower is one aspect. The company is getting bigger and bigger, and it is indeed short of capable people. But even if it is short of manpower, it will not let his girlfriend do it. This car smashing incident reminded Su Ming that as his career gets bigger and bigger, he sometimes ignores Nangong. Transferring her to work by his side is a kind of protection for her and this relationship. Well, I'll tell you after I think about it, Nangong said. From beginning to end, Shenying watched the two of them silently from the side, without saying a word, took a sip of wine, and felt a little sour. After a good meal and a good drink, Nangong drove Su Ming and Shenying to the zoo. As soon as Su Ming returned to the zoo, he saw Guozijian leading a large group of zoo staff in training. You guys are pretending to be ghosts. They really were pretending to be ghosts.